Badiou and Beckett, theorists and event makers. This is a staging citizenship lecture by me, Andrew Thomas at Asphalt University College. And in this lecture, what we're going to do is apply the concept of the event to a couple of things and discuss it some more, and just take it a little bit apart and talk about what else it implies. And particularly in focus during this lecture are the theatrical works of Badiou and Beckett. Famously, Badiou is a philosopher, and the philosopher for very many people. But his theatrical works are slightly less known, and we've put them on the reading list for this semester. Beckett, on the other hand, has got the opposite problem. Everybody knows about Beckett's theatrical works, whereas his other works are less well known. So, but we're going to get them both to meet in their theatre, which means that Badiou is in some ways on foreign territory. So let's talk about the theory of the event first, and ask the question, for Badiou, where do events come from? Because I said a little bit in the last couple of lectures that Badiou's been criticised by thinking that by the idea that his events seem to come from nowhere. I don't think that criticism is actually justified. He's got an extremely intricate theory of where events come from, in the sense that they form a part of the world that they come out of. They make sense in some ways in the world they come out of, but at the same time, they are founding events of the world that they create. And therefore, they, in a really simplified version is that they bridge that situation. The point is, you can make sense of them in the world that they come out of, but you can't necessarily say that what the sense that they make in the pre-event world is the same sense of the post-event world. We'll talk more about this, and in the discussion online, give some content to that claim. Anyway, point is, he's got 4 ideas about where these events come from, and when he's talking about events, a lot of the time revolution and politics is in the background. He's famously a 68ard. He was there in the French 1968 revolts in Paris, the student demonstrations. But he also thinks that events can come out in art, and we've already discussed how that works, and in thought or in science specifically. And his book, being an event, pays a great deal of attention to the world of science, and particularly the world of maths. So he's interested in the way we thought about the world before and after Einstein, for example, and Galileo, and any number of other thinkers. But also the world of love, and I guess that's the odd one out in many ways, because the others change the world, whereas love changes my world. The point is that all of these 4 things can be events, and whether you like it or not, they can completely change the way you look at the world. Specifically, because love is one of these, that does mean that that events can be a personal matter, and for me at least, reading Badiou, and especially the Ethics at first, but also in time the Being an Event and various other of his works, did completely transform the way I'm thinking. And in many ways, Badiou does actually demonstrate, in my life at least, what an event does. It means you start looking at other things differently, and that's one of the challenges of this semester, is that I want to give you different tools to look at the world differently. Ritual analysis has helped you to look at the world differently, and I want you also to be able to use the concept of the event as a way that produces new terms, new definitions, and new ways of life. And this is a little like what I want you to be, the way I want you to be thinking as teachers. We've talked previously about what do you want your pupils to know, but also what do you want your pupils to do. We also need to think about education and our own education as an event in our pupils' lives, and we need to be asking ourselves the questions: what transformations do we want our schooling to have brought into place in our pupils' lives? What do we want our pupils to be able to see and to do after they've had a lesson with us? So with that in mind, I want you to use this as a prism when you're reading Badiou. That said, it really is in your face, the idea of the event in Badiou's theatrical work, and the and in particular the incident at Antioch is the one that I've set you to read, where the acts are talking about what happened before and after and during the event. And here it's a political event that's in a case in point. Notice that the conversations are different, and he wants to draw attention to the differences that have come into place. So in many ways, his Badiou's theatre is very close to his theorizing. It's he's putting into place, putting into context the conversations that he wants his philosophy to bring to birth. It is also a reference to Beckett. Notice that it's a tragedy in 3 acts. Beckett's Waiting for God is a tragic comedy in 2 acts. So I think that Beckett is in the background in when Badiou writes this. So what is going on with Beckett's theatre? Beckett does not talk about what he does. I would say that he demonstrates it. Waiting for Godot is definitely a play that talks about the fact that we're just waiting and there's nothing happening. But mostly as a theatrical piece of theatrical work, it demonstrates it. There isn't a great deal that goes on in Waiting for Godot, and that is kind of what he's trying to say. That is a little bit like life. There are a few brushes with death. Otherwise, you're just waiting for the end. So the experience of watching Waiting for Godot is meant to tell you a little bit about the experience of living, but he doesn't say it. So in many ways, for me, the difference between Badiou and Beckett and their theatrical work is that Badiou says it, Beckett demonstrates it. Famously, Ludwig Wittgenstein said that you can't. There are a lot of things that you cannot say, and those are the things you have to be silent about. In his Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, he, in conversation afterwards, also said, if you can't say it, you can't whistle it either. That is to say that with Beckett's theatre, what he's trying to say is not necessarily something that he is not. He's not saying it with theatre. It's not that you will get the message once you see it in theatre rather than if you were just told it. The fact is you have to observe what is happening in order to get the message. To not listen, but observe. So things happen according to Badiou, events happen, nothing happens according to Beckett. These are in many ways completely different ways of looking at the world, but I rather think they are also completely compatible. We need to, when we're looking at events, we need to look at what has happened before and afterwards rather than just describe what has happened. We need to we need to observe the event and observe its results. Rather than simply listen to what people are saying with these events, because they are verbal events, art, science, even love, but definitely demonstrations, political demonstrations, they are verbal things. And we need to see the difference between telling the story once again, but also being faithful to this event. And again, telling the story might be very verbal, but being faithful means repeating it and living in the light of this event. And again, we're going to have to discuss this more in class, in our virtual class, in order to work out what this means in individual instances.